It's very important that moving through development, which includes climate, the government can't do it alone. We cannot, through public finance. So we need to create an enabling environment for private sector investments. And renewable energy is extremely important. Water desalination today is attractive to the private sector. And also resilient agriculture is as well. And what we have tried to do in our country platform is say, we have a national objective, the Strategy 2050. We have NDCs, so each of our projects are earmarked to NDCs, which are very important nationally, but as I mentioned, add to the global goals, and then leverage on our partnerships. And try and put within our partnerships different financing tools that can draw in private sector. Grant components, debt swaps for climate action, concessional finance, and try and blend all of this so that private sector can come in. The very important part about the WEF program, and WEF in Arabic means fulfilling pledges, is that it's country-led. So it's in line, these are development projects that we want to do, we need to do. When you have this country ownership, you have commitments. We try to be as clear as possible with the description of the projects, and then we try to be credible given the international partnerships that we have. So we wanted at COP27 to show country-led. Partnerships are very important, and you cannot escape from, actually you need to invite private sector involvement. The idea also of just financing is that there's a historic responsibility, but also that there is this, I don't want to say a right, to being able to develop as well as do climate action. And the access to finance, there's a quality and a quantity. So there's the quantity, but also we need this financing to be sustainable. And for that to be sustainable is where this whole agenda on reform of multilateral development banks. Today, when you look at the World Bank, for instance, one of their flagship projects is country climate development reports, the CCDRs. This means that climate and development come hand in hand. So if we are talking about the reform going forward, we need to always be thinking about these things integrated, exactly as Nick and Masoud and Sherry sort of emphasized. Financing reflects a lot of what was said. I mean, and let me start with what Nick started with. Climate, SDG 13, is part of the 17 SDGs. So climate and development are not mutually exclusive. Again, Sherry explained there is a human element related to climate change. So there are people, and people mean no hunger, no poverty, more partnerships. So all of the 17 goals are related to climate. And if we take that and internalize it when we're thinking about financing, we will have many, many answers. So when we say that we want a bank to be a green bank, it doesn't mean that we exclude all the other objectives. It means that we need to increase the pie, not direct the pie to one objective. I think this is a very important basis to start at. And this is what we worked on in the lead up to COP27. And it was through Nick's work, through our work, collectively, we were pushing this message because there's a gap to the SDGs. The pandemic happened. The gap in terms of financing increased. Now with the different climate pressures, this financing gap is also going up, and then comes compounded crises one after the other. So if you take a look at where is the financing of climate coming from, it has mostly come from public sources, from governments. And therefore, governments either from the budget or from official development assistance or from going to the markets, and this has increased their debt levels. So this is when we say commitments, the pledges of the 100 billion, and then our COP was from pledges to implementation. So we tried through the work on just financing to say, how can we go from pledges to implementation? What is required? Masoud mentioned partnerships. It's not the government alone. It's not the private sector alone. We need more grant components to make the projects investable, to add to the technical capacity at the start. The other very important aspect is country specificities. And you mentioned, Mina, that it's not just mitigation and CO2 emissions, but adaptation and resilience. And this was one of the other outcomes during COP, that food security and water security in many countries are top development agenda strategies, which are also climate strategies. So how can we make sure that countries are able to do this to achieve their national goals, but at the same time contribute to the global goals that all of us want. And then comes loss and damage. And you know, you try to invest in adaptation projects to protect you from going into loss and damage. And therefore, if we do this investment, not cost, early on, then we don't have to move into the next step, which is loss and damage. But absolutely, you can invest in infrastructure, but you can be faced by a shock, and that's why this trust fund around loss and damage creates that, you know, insurance policy, if you will, to protect and mitigate the impact of what could be going from adaptation to loss.